The skateboarding scene was massive in the early 2000s, mostly due to Tony Hawk pulling off the 900 trick and his game series becoming the gold standard for the genre. Of course, that led other publishers and developers to make their own games within the skateboarding genre. Konami entered the fray with Evolution Skateboarding, which capitalized on the fact that the development team at Konami Osaka created a skateboarding minigame in Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance, and an entire game was made out of that here. I've briefly covered this in my alternatives to the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series episode, but now I wanted to revisit it, complete it, and provide my in-depth review. So, is Evolution Skateboarding actually an evolution as the title insinuates, or does it bail every step of the way? Let's find out. Evolution Skateboarding does follow a similar style to the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, in which you pick a skater and tackle a variety of objectives within numerous levels, but instead of a 2-minute time limit, you'll have a 3-minute time limit. Objectives can range from something like do X amount of tricks in a combo, to find X number of items, to finding a hidden item, as well as trying to complete a unique objective that might alter the level a bit. Depending on the skater you choose, they will have different stages and objectives to tackle for their arcade mode. I actually like this feature as it encourages players to play the game with all the skaters. You can also create your own skater, which will have their own career path specific levels. There are about 15 stages total to tackle, but each skater will tackle about 6 of them, while each having 2 boss stages. Yes, you heard that correctly, but more on that part later. As for the levels themselves, there is a fair amount of creativity incorporated into them, but they do lack the feel of cohesiveness. Certain levels requiring checkpoint icons to hit never quite feel like they're placed on a smooth line, but sometimes are just randomly plotted around the course. Also, it's hard to keep a combo line going due to the placement of objects throughout levels. Each level is a decent size to explore, and there is luckily a mini-map that helps find key objects. Now, a game of this genre lives or dies by its mechanics and controls, and initially, the controls will not provide good first impressions. Evolution Skateboarding's controls may mimic that of the Tony Hawk series, where the A button ollies, the B and X do flip and grab tricks respectively, and the Y button lets you grind, but the physics themselves do take a huge adjustment. The trick system itself is a little dull and stiff as opposed to the fluidity of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series. Doing spin tricks requires pressing or holding the L or R buttons to spin left or right respectively, whereas pushing the analog stick in a certain direction while pressing the B or X buttons will pull off a specified trick. Sometimes double tapping a direction followed by the trick button does different tricks worth more points. You can perform manuals as well to keep the combo strings going, but the implementation here is one that really frustrated me. You have to either press up or down on the analog stick, followed by the Y button, but the infuriating part is that you actually have to hold down the Y button to keep the manual going, while also balancing the stability gauge. Many times I had to rewire my thought process in a combo to always remember to hold the Y button down while pressing up or down on the analog stick to initiate the manual. In terms of physics, it's okay at best. How high you ollie is dependent on your speed, and the sense of speed is rarely there. Going off of vert ramps never feels reliable either, as there are times that you can get some great height, and there are times when you'll have a good amount of speed to only get barely any air. It sometimes feels like the flip of a coin in a way. Another element that is frustrating is that when bailing, it takes almost 5 seconds for your rider to get back up. You can mash all the buttons you want, but that skater isn't going to get up any faster. More frustrating is many times the skater will face the opposite direction of where you were facing when getting up. Back to the trick system, as you keep pulling off tricks, you will fill up a special meter, which can bank up to 5 special tricks to pull off at any time. Specials can be pulled off simply pressing the up or down direction when in mid-air, followed by pressing the Z button. However, what is unique about the special trick system is that you can customize what special trick you want assigned. And this brings us to the edit the tricks section. In editing tricks, it's not just simply picking a trick to assign, but rather assign a combo as well. You can select a variety of tricks here, and the difficulty gauge will show whether it will be an easy, medium, or hard special trick combo to pull off. You can also test out the special tricks before heading out into the main game. This is a nice addition of customization that gives special tricks a more personal touch. Aside from tricks, you can customize your skater's style/clothing as well as their gear. The gear loadout will affect certain attributes, so changing the deck size may provide more ollie points, but it might detract from spin points, for example. Since every skater has unique stats, this is a nice way to adjust those stat points a bit more to your liking, especially since you can't actually upgrade the character's stat points throughout the game. Alright, so far I may have had some mixed things to say about the game, more so on the game's controls and physics. And while I initially didn't have many positive things to say the first time I brought this game up, I have to say, it did grow on me the more I played it for this review. Now, that's not to say I grew to think of it as an awesome skateboarding game, far from it, but rather, it grew on me in which was once a almost unplayable game like The Simpsons Skateboarding on the PS2. This is actually a fairly enjoyable game once you give it the time to learn its controls, physics, and overall mechanics. One of the coolest aspects of the game is that when you beat the arcade mode with each skater, you will unlock a new special character to play as. Being that it's a Konami published and developed game, expect some characters from the company's lineage. So obviously, the game is known for having Solid Snake as an unlockable character, in which you just have to beat Colin McKay's arcade mode. Don't listen to the findings online that state you need to complete every skater's campaign 100%, collecting all the coins as well, just to unlock Solid Snake. Just beat this specific skater's campaign enough to see the credits roll, which is by just defeating the military tank in the end, and Solid Snake will be unlocked. Additionally, you can unlock Simon Belmont, or Vampire Killer is what they call him in here, by beating Kerry Getz' arcade mode. There's even Raiden as an unlockable character, and Frogger, as well as several more. Another element I really liked about this game was how they implemented boss battles. For example, you may have to chase a runaway 18-wheeler and grind the side bars of the truck to take it down and stop it from terrorizing the city. Or better yet, there are two stages with the castle setting, both being homages to Castlevania of course, where you can face off against either a hideous spider creature that spews fire, and even the Lord of Darkness himself, Dracula. Playing as Simon Belmont in these levels will also play a remixed version of the Vampire Killer theme, as well as tracks from Castlevania games during these boss fights. While playing on the plant stage, we'll play a South Californian style version of the Metal Gear Solid theme. Homages like this truly are awesome and easily the game's best aspects. It's actually because of this that I really wanted to stick with the game, and in the process, I was able to acclimate with the controls and the mechanics where I started to have a somewhat more enjoyable time. Now, aside from the arcade mode, there are other modes here. There's a practice mode, which is very welcome since the mechanics here will take some learning, especially for fans of Tony Hawk games, since they'll need to rewire their minds on what is normally muscle memory. Additionally, there's a challenge mode that has you tackle single objectives that ramp up in difficulty as you progress. You'll have access to every challenge from the get-go, so you can jump around to your liking. There's also a free mode, which like it insinuates, gives you free reign and unlimited time to just play around in all the game's levels, boss battles included. There's a quick mode too, if you're looking to just have a game session started immediately without navigating any menus really. Also, there is a trial mode, which can be played in either single player or multiplayer, but alternating between the two players. This lets you choose between vert and park stage types. It will be a run with multiple sessions on an aircraft carrier, where vert is all about those air tricks on a half pipe, while park will be about stringing together combos with air and ground tricks. It's a neat addition to the core game, and it's nice that this locale isn't used for the arcade mode, giving it its own flair. Lastly, there is also a versus mode, where you can play two-player split screen against a friend. However, I have to be honest, this mode feels incredibly lackluster and just thrown in. You can choose between a score mode and a ring mode, and use any of the skaters including the ones you've unlocked at this point. Score mode is 90 seconds on the clock and just see who can get the most points in a run. Ring mode is also 90 seconds on the clock where you and your opponent try to just collect as many rings as possible. The biggest problem is that there's only one small stage to do multiplayer on. Out of all of the game's stages, the one here is generic and unmemorable at best. It feels like such an afterthought. It almost reminds me of the days when playing single card multiplayer on DS games where the experience was very limited usually. Yeah, that's what this feels like. In terms of visuals, Evolution Skateboarding looks pretty good with some nice texture work. Character models all look good and have solid animation work to them. Environmental detail is pretty nice overall as well, with levels like the Western Desert having nice dust effects and the castle having reflective surfaces within the church area. It does run at 60 frames per second, but there are instances of frame rate drops, like this area here in the castle that tanks and runs in pretty much slow motion, and it also heavily affects the control response. This is probably the worst instance I came across. Otherwise, most of the instances were lesser prevalent and ran closer to the 60 frames most of the time. In terms of audio, the soundtrack here fits the game quite well. The licensed soundtrack may not be as strong as other games of its genre, but what's here is very catchy and will stick with you as you keep playing. I do like that you can change the game's tracks on the fly with the C-stick, which can also be jarring since I found myself trying to rotate the camera at times with this, but it's still nice that you can do that on the fly. Sound effects capture the skateboarding essence well, and the announcer in the game actually isn't annoying at all. Other audio effects also help make this feel like an arcade-like experience, and is overall just well done. There's even this sequence here where you're in Tokyo trying to help an Italian pizza shop owner, but he speaks Japanese. I read online that some people felt this was a development oversight that they forgot to translate, but on the contrary, I think this was actually one of their finer details to the game world itself. So take it as you will. Regardless, the audio package here is really good.
He's gonna attack you, be careful!
Evolution Skateboarding may not evolve the genre as the title insinuates, but what's here can be enjoyable once you acclimate to the mechanics, controls, and physics. It's not a great skateboarding game, but a competent one that is saved a bit by its nods of Konami nostalgia, once you gain access to that content. Overall, if you are looking for a skateboarding game that's familiar yet different from the Tony Hawk series, give Evolution Skateboarding a try. Just know in advance that it will take some time to acclimate to it before it all starts clicking. I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and I'll catch you all in the next video.
5 missions to complete in this stage.